Hey guys, this is Butch from the Vintage Media Grading Podcast. And before we start, I just want to give a shameless plug to Vintage Media Grading. VMG is your source for grading, authenticating, and slabbing your precious vinyl records. In addition, we offer a host of other services, including cleaning and sticker removal, as well as soft grading, which is a way to get your albums graded, but still allow you to spin your records and listen to your tunes. Come visit us at www.vmgvinyl.com to place your orders, or feel free to contact us at info@vmgvinyl.com. Hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hello and welcome back to Vintage Media Grading, the podcast. This is episode 12. It's your host, Andrew Hoffman, and have with me Chad and Paul Brayman with Vintage Media Grading. We're here talking about the Austin Record Convention that just recently wrapped and what our impressions were and some of the interesting things that we brought back with us as far as vinyl or even memories, experiences, and whatnot. So how are you doing, guys? How are Chad and Paul doing today?
Doing well. Been super busy.
Oh yeah,
good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Paul and I that were at the show. If you had a chance to meet us, I know that we met a couple of the VMG podcast listeners, so that was really fun. Chad and Butch stayed back and made sure that made sure operations were ongoing. So it was a busy month.
Yeah, I was very disappointed that I missed this one. The last Austin show was a lot of fun. It's probably my favorite record show that I've been to, and definitely my favorite one that we've gone to together as to represent VMG. But I was very disappointed I missed out on that, and sounded like you guys had an awesome time. From the looks of things, it was a very fruitful trip. Got some new customers, and orders coming in, which is great. And you got the word out, and so it sounds like you guys did. You don't need Butch and I. Whatever you guys did worked.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. Just a little bit about us. We've been kind of missing for the last month. We haven't done a podcast for a while. At VMG, we ran a big sale for the month of April. So we've just been swamped with work. We've got tons of cool submissions, lots of interesting stuff that we've seen this past month. So it was nice at the end of the month to go visit Austin, look at some records, and meet some new people. But that's kind of where we've been for this past month. So we're glad to be back.
Yeah, we even got some international customers too. I mean, we've had international customers, but some of these places are pretty far away. So I was impressed, and I'm glad that we're going to be able to get some slabs in other parts of the world. So very, very excited about that. And I'd like to thank Chad and Butch for staying behind and making sure that our production team was ongoing and getting these things out while we were trying to get some more business at the show and meeting our fans, friends, and clients. So it was really nice. The show was actually, what did they say? What did they say over the intercom? It was a record-setting show. It was huge.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they said for attendance or vendors or sales, but it said it was the largest show that they've had. And we've been to Austin a couple times now, and it's a huge, huge show. Yeah. This year, it was just Drew and I, so we're manning the table, so we don't have tons of time to shop, which is disappointing. So we didn't get to run around and really shop as much as we'd like. And if you've ever been to a record show, usually you can just hit a couple tables. That's what most shows are. But this one is massive, and you need days to really shop. And stuff is just everywhere. Some vendors don't alphabetize. They don't separate by genre. They just put records in boxes and have at it. So you need hours and days to really see everything that they had there.
Yeah, it was really cool also to see the YouTubers going around. We saw Dylan from Noble, The Waxed, Rob. He actually came by the booth, and I got my picture taken with him. Mazzy was there. He came by the booth, got my picture taken with him, and quite a few others. It was really nice to talk to them. Really nice guys in person, and they just love vinyl just like us. I mean, we love listening and talking about vinyl, and so we had a lot in common. We really appreciated it, the conversations with them. We got to hang out. In fact, our booth was right across from Far Out Records, who are buddies of ours, and they should be on the podcast here coming up, not too long. So, but yeah, they were close enough that I was able to actually buy some records from them and from a couple other vendors that were in the general vicinity, because I couldn't really venture out too far. Yeah, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had a blast. What were some of the big things that stuck with you, Paul, about the show?
Yeah, I mean, it's just overwhelming. It really is for buyers and for collectors. It's huge, and you don't even know where to start. So it is overwhelming. A word of advice, if you're a collector, especially if you're a collector of rare records, is go to the early shopper day on Friday, because vendors go to Austin with their rare records. That's a big selling point. We're talking to the guys from Far Out, and it's like that's where they sell their rare records, is Austin at the big shows. So if you're hunting rare records, go early, do the early shopper, get there on Friday before it's open to the general public. You can probably pick up a lot of good stuff that you have on your want list. I didn't get in until Saturday. Drew was there for the early shoppers on Friday, but I'm not a big rare record collector like some other people are.
Yeah, and I couldn't break away from the booth to do much shopping. But something interesting about this year is on the far wall, they actually opened up like a little island area that went further than the show normally goes. Usually that's all closed off. It was only for Friday and Saturday, but there was a vendor back there selling VMG slabs amongst a lot of other high-end records and rare records and things like that. So it was really cool to see slabs starting to reach the market at the record show there. I think it was probably the first year where slabs of any sort for vinyl were sold at Austin. So that was really cool.
One of the things that I know that we had on display there was the Taylor Swift's latest album, which we did the raffle through social media, and we drew a winner. Have we heard from them, Paul?
We haven't gotten a response yet. I DM'd him today. I emailed him on yesterday, just waiting for a response so we can get that album out to him. But we had a couple hundred entries. It was pretty cool. This was the first time we tried to give away. So that I'm looking forward to getting it to that person. I'm hoping they have a teenage daughter or something who's really psyched about it. So we'll see.
There will be some kids that are very excited to try to win that thing. So if that guy doesn't reach out, then I'm sure they'll have a chance. It was actually very interesting, the spread with that Taylor Swift giveaway. There were 11-year-old girls coming in and signing up. There were people like their parents signing up. There were, and I'm going to use this term loosely, but like old guys, people like me signing up. It was just really shocking to me that everyone was like, "Oh, the Taylor Swift album, yeah, I'd like to sign up." And it wasn't just, I would imagine it was just like the teenage girls, and it wasn't. It was a pretty wide fan base.
Yeah, it was cool. One person came up and was like, that called it a work of art. They just wanted to put on display. So it was, it was cool. It was fun.
shameless plug, it did look really good in our slab with our new flip design, I must say.
All the credit goes to Drew and the marketing team on designing that flip. I know the three of us, Paul, Butch, and I, the original flip, which we thought was so wonderful. And then after seeing the old one next to the new one, it's a reason why the three of us are not in marketing.
Yeah, it's really night and day. The new ones look so much better.
Yeah, it's great. It was funny to see, like, on Record Store Day and when that Taylor Swift album came out, that, you know, my daughter wanted the Taylor Swift album, all the colors, and when you go to look for the albums, I'm 44 years old, flipping through Taylor Swift albums, taking each one out, trying to find the one with the sharpest corners, and that I'm gonna just give to her, and she's gonna rip it open and play it and enjoy it like she should. But it's I wasn't the only one doing that, and it kind of reminds me of like the baseball card bubble a little bit, when people were like lining up at department stores like Walmart or Target or whatever, and to buy baseball cards, and starting to see that on not just stuff people that want to buy because it's the bands that they like, but when there's a phenomenon like Taylor Swift is right now, and people of all ages just kind of looking for the perfectly mint versions of her album. It's definitely interesting. That reminds us, so she's listening, and next time she's in town, love to have her on the podcast.
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen. I mean, it's gonna happen.
I mean, she lives right down the road. There's no reason it shouldn't happen.
She's right there. Yeah.
Yeah. I could personally apologize to pool hopping when I was about 18, and whoever used to, in the old Harkness house, that before she moved there, that was a place we used to hang out on the beach.
Yeah, had my first beer in that backyard.
So I don't want to get too pluggy, but one of the things that I wanted to just bring attention to is in conversing with collectors, because I've been going to the Austin Record Show back in the AAGS days. I remember being there with almost, I think it was even a handwritten sign. It was very early days, back in, I don't know, 2019, 2020, something. It was before the pandemic. And I had to convey the concept of what third-party grading was, and I had to convey the concept of what slabbing was and why it would be beneficial. But I don't know about you, Paul. Did you feel like there was a shift now this year where people have kind of progressed in their understanding of the hobby?
Definitely. Even from this time and from when we went 6 months ago to the fall show, a huge shift of how kind of normalized it is now. People understand it. They've seen it. There's obviously factions of collectors who just don't want to use it, and that's perfectly fine. It's not their thing. But there's so many now that understand it. They know what we're doing. They're getting to know us a little bit more through these podcasts and other communications that we've had. And it's starting to become much more normalized and understood. And it's cool. It was cool to see such a big kind of change in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I was really encouraged by that too.
Mm-hmm.
Away from the plugs, what kind of records did you pick up? I know you and I both did not pick up very much at all.
No.
But did you pick up anything interesting?
Yeah, I got. So
before, because I feel left out, because I wasn't there. Before you got share what you got. It was a mail day for me, so just because I wasn't at the show didn't mean I didn't stop buying.
You probably did more shopping than we did.
Yeah.
Home.
I don't know if you can see it really. It's a shellac. So one of the things I'm doing is I looked at like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and some of the contributors or early members. I forgot what they call them. Not contributors, but like like founding fathers type of rock, like the early, almost like pre-rock and roll entries. I went through that list and tried to pull some of the names that I thought were, iconic names, and whether you're a huge music fan or not, you'd recognize, and then get their first album. Most of them are on shellac, and this is ironically, and Butch is not on here to poke fun at me here, but it's The Fat Man by Fats Domino, maroon label, Imperial, first press. I forgot the exact date. 50s. Really, really nice condition. It's one that not super rare. It's not common. Like there's none on Discogs right now, none on eBay. One usually comes up like once a month. So, it's fairly rare. Not something you see every day. I'm just opening it right now. Actually, the condition's not really that great, but it's one that I haven't. It's one that I wanted. And
careful.
Looking forward to probably needs a cleaning. So Drew, I'll probably be subbing this to you for a cleaning.
Yeah,
that's cool. And shellac is so cheap right now.
Yeah,
and if you're a prospector, might want to look into the stuff that Chad's looking into and some early shellac. It's hard to keep in good condition. It breaks easy, scratches easy. A lot of people don't have even turntables that play 78s. So,
yeah, I don't want to tangent too much on shellac and what I got, and there's some super expensive shellac, and I'm far from, there's collectors out there that have, shellac that's 4-figure, 5-figure, truly rare recordings. So it's definitely already is collectible, but I do, to your point, Paul, some of the more household names, Sinatra, Johnny Cash, Elvis is that one's pretty collectible. But there's some pretty household names that their first recordings are on shellac, and they are, relatively speaking, pretty, I think, a good deal. If you're buying something that you think has some upside, the shellac boom hasn't even started yet, if there ever becomes one, and it's I think a cool way to get some really historical pieces.
Yeah, I agree.
Price.
Yeah, I noticed at the show that that in Austin that 45s and 78s were, when I was going early on, I mean, that's all people were like shopping for. And I thought, it's kind of strange. I'm really into the LP thing. And there were just guys just slinging 45s like crazy and 78s. And there's guys coming in from, Japan and buying just totes full of 78s and 45s. And I did not see that at all this year. So I started asking some of the vendors, hey, what's up with this? Are you noticing a slowdown? They said a big time slowdown. So they attributed it to the recession and that sort of thing. But, to your point, Paul, like right now, that's when you buy low.
Yeah.
Because the prices are going down on them. And, there will be a grading company that will slab 45s and 78s in the future.
And 45s in the not too distant future.
Oh yeah.
If we're
2024,
a little tease.
Yeah.
So about 45s, it's something I never really super got into, the collecting of 45s. But if you go to a record store, looking through 45s is a daunting task.
It is.
You have to be really disciplined, and you got to just sit there on the floor and just comb through those things. There's tons of them. They're not in sleeves most of the time. They're just kind of loose everywhere. And you need to set aside a lot of time and really hunt. And that's where you can find some treasures.
Yeah, you have to look at them a little bit differently. You can't shop like you do an LP. You have to look at the label design. You have to look at what it says. Like, is it vocals? Is it, instrumental, and then you get into the subgenres, and that becomes a whole nother ball of wax. And they're talking to the guys at Far Out. They were talking about, you want to have, you want to look to see, like, for Latino type releases, if it's a disco or if it's a ballad. So there's all types of things to look at. So
and we've talked about 45s a little bit because so many famous artists usually have their first release on 45s.
Correct.
And maybe not usually, but a lot of times there's type of somewhat unknown release or a pre-famous band release that's on 45s, and those are cool to hunt for.
Kind of like that Keith Richards 45 that we got in for cleaning and soft grading. That was it was not really, it wasn't
a different Keith Richards. But just some of the stuff I found, and like I said, we didn't really shop. So when I actually got out to shop, it wasn't for myself. I was looking for some stuff for my kids. So one of the kind of cool things I found was my son's a big hip hop fan, which is a genre that I was never just too big into hip hop growing up, and now I'm just never got really into hip hop, but he is, and he likes kind of, I wouldn't say an underground artist, but a lesser mainstream artist called West Side Gun, and he always looks for his stuff. He's out of Buffalo. He's been releasing stuff for about 10, 12 years or so. But every time he releases something, it's super limited quality on vinyl. So like 500 copies here, 500 copies there, 1,000 maybe of one color, sometimes only 100. And so they're super hard to find, and they're bootlegged basically. And even the unofficial records go for pretty decent amount, and they're hard to find. So I was just looking for a couple hip hop vendors that were there, and I found 2 West Side Gun albums that he was looking for. One of them is Chris Benoit, and one of them is Hall and Nash. And if you're a wrestling fan, West Side Gun does a lot of name dropping with wrestlers from the 90s and 80s. So on each of these covers, Chris Benoit is on one of them. Obviously, he had a more kind of a tragic ending to his career and his life. But Hall and Nash is the other one. So Hall and Nash, Scott Hall is Razor Ramon for WWF fans, and Hall and Nash were pretty famous WCW guys. So they're both actually unofficial, and they're both kind of valuable. Even his unofficial ones sell for between $50 and $100, sometimes even more than that, because you can't find his official ones. So I got both of those. They have full covers. The wrestler that Chris Benoit's on the cover of one. The other one is himself and a collaborator who's on the record. But he's a cool artist to listen to. He does lots of 80s and 90s kind of pop culture references in a lot of his songs, lots of wrestling references. Pretty interesting stuff, even for a non-hip hop fan.
Sounds like you'd be a perfect guest for our podcast.
Yeah, I think we should reach out to him.
He fit right in. 80s and 90s pop culture references and naming his albums after wrestlers.
Yeah. And his more recent one, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, is on the cover of it. So he's got lots of like kind of random. He's from Buffalo, so there's some random Bills references in there. Steve Tasker, he mentions, as a special teamer for the Bills in the 90s. Yeah, so it's pretty cool stuff.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, that was a good find.
Yeah, so I thought that was cool. And like I said, they're unofficial, but even the unofficial stuff from him is tough to find.
What was the price? Well, like you don't have to get into the exact price, but relative to like what they go for, say on like Discogs or eBay,
pretty similar. Unofficials go for these 2 records. One of them's not really even sold on Discogs. The other one is seen sales for $60 on Discogs, and that's $60 for an unofficial album. It's kind of high because they're just hard to find. I think Tyler, my son, has another one of his records that's unofficial, and it's like $150, $200 record.
Is that the one I got on for Christmas?
Yeah. Yep. They have. He put out a series of, they're called like mixtapes, so they're not really official album releases, but they all have Hitler in the name. It's Hitler Wears Hermes. It's like a play on Devil Wears Prada. Hermes. Whatever.
If we have any fashionista women listening to the podcast, they're probably clicking off right now.
How do you say it? Erme? Erme, that's what I said, didn't
I don't know what you
said. Well, anyway, there's a whole series of those,
Hitler,
like 9, a whole bunch of them. And they all have images of Hitler on them. So maybe that's why they're so hard to find and kind of rare. So
cool. Very cool. Go ahead, Paul. Well, I was just gonna share a couple of mine here that I picked up. I was actually able to complete some of my record store day list from some of the vendors. This one's kind of beat up a little bit, but it's Eric Carr's Unfinished Business. It's the box set, and it's the one that you can plug in. It has a USB-C drive on it, slot. Then you can press Eric Carr's eyes, and they like flash. But the reason why I wanted this, not only is it because it's Kiss, but also because on the track Eyes of Love, our very own John Humphrey from Seether played the drums. So in the recording, so I won't steal too much thunder from him because I'm sure we're going to have him back on the podcast, and he's probably going to want to talk about that, but didn't mean to steal his thunder there. Cool. And then I got the Pearl Jam Record Store Day pressing. So cool. got a really good price on that. It's probably like $16 cheaper than the.
Yeah, and I actually really, the more I've listened to it, I really like the new Pearl Jam album. I have the 10 Club version of it, the Red Marble one. Mm-hmm. I've listened to it a lot over and over again, and it's grown on me a lot. I think Upper Hand is a great song. Waiting for Stevie's a great song. A couple other ones. So I really like it.
And that's what I'm hearing from all the reviewers too. Is like the more you listen to it, the more you love it. And so I think that tells me it's a good album. So. And then this one was very hard to find anywhere, but it's the South Park concert, for the 25th anniversary for South Park. And what's cool about this one is that, and I really wish I could have been to Red Rocks to see the concert live, because they had, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who are some of the writers for the South Park cartoon, but also Primus, who does the theme song. And then Ween, who has done some music for the show over the years. So Primus and Ween, two of my more favorite bands, were headlining the show basically with Trey Parker and Matt Stone playing backing tracks. Some of the tracks they were playing together, like both drummers, all the band were playing all at the same time. It was really cool. And then at the show, I don't know if this track is on here or not, but there were rumors about it. But Geddy Lee, is basically everyone from Rush except for Neil Peart, made a surprise appearance at the concert and did a bunch of stuff because Rush was featured on the show as well. So it made for a really good concert. It's streamed online if you want to watch it. It's a really good show. But to have it on 3-disc set is pretty cool. It's not the entire thing.
Radiohead didn't make that concert. It's I think my favorite South Park episode.
Yeah. And then the best band in the world.
Is that an official album, or is that an official release, or is that like a bootleg?
Yeah, official Record Store Day release.
Cool.
But that's the only way you can get it is the Record Store Day. This is Chad's favorite band, the Jacksons. Yeah, the Jacksons is Chad's favorite band. I got this just because it was so stinking clean. I mean, it's sealed, and I mean, just at a glance, I'm thinking maybe a 9.0 on this, 8.5 if Chad's grading.
I thought you were going to pull out a Megadeth album.
No, this is Jackson's band. It's your favorite band, and it still has the price tag and the Walmart receipt that matches the price tag on there. So I'll take that stuff off before I have it graded. But I thought it was kind of cool provenance, and the condition was really good. So I thought I'd grab it. It was cheap. The guy gave us the deal on it.
That was pretty cool.
Just I might as well throw this in there now because I mentioned sending something to you, Drew, well, just for cleaning, and you mentioned getting some stuff graded. For the record, no pun intended, anytime we grade, a lot of times, we'll have, not a lot of times and not as much as I'd like, because I'd love to have all of my records graded. But when we do grade anything of our own, you'll know that it's one of ours because the serial number will begin with our initials. So there's everything's above board, no funny business. None of our personally graded things should be in the marketplace ever. But that's something I don't want listeners to think that, because there's been other grading companies and other genres of collectibles that, did some pretty unscrupulous things as far as grading their own things and then selling them. And so I wanted to just get that out there, that's something we're very conscious of. And anything that if we do grade our own things in our own collection, one, it's for just our own personal use, so it should never be in the marketplace. But just an added layer of security, they'll always have our initials on them. All of our serial numbers should start with a number, unless it's done something special, like for one of our own or something like that. We'll have a letter, or may say something in the serial number, or have our initials. So
yeah, the serial numbers that are ours will start with AH, MH, PB, or CB. If you get any of those in the marketplace, we want our records back, because they're from our personal collection. We are not trying to slab our own stuff and resell it. We would never ever think about doing that, and always question a grading company who would consider doing that.
Paul and I, our mom does have her Pinball Wizard album slabbed in the serial numbers.
Tommy album.
Yeah. Oh, Tommy. Yeah. And it's the serial numbers Merry Christmas. And I actually fat fingered it, and it's Merry with 3 R's, so it's very merry.
Extra merry.
That's a rare variant. It's an error copy.
Yep.
So cool.
See, now that we're talking about Record Store Day, I only picked up one Record Store Day album. The only one that I really wanted was the Malfunction release. It's the first time Malfunction, which was Andrew Wood's pre-Mother Love Bone band, they never put out an album during his lifetime. They were on a couple albums, or on Deep Six, or on another Pirate Victory, and that's pretty much it. A couple 45s, but this is their first kind of full-length release on vinyl. There was a CD compilation that came out, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Sound quality on that was not very good. But the Record Store Day one, I actually haven't even listened yet, but it's a serial numbered copy, 1 through 1500. Really cool packaging it. Looking forward to listening.
I was going to ask you how that sounded.
I haven't even got a chance to listen to it yet.
So jealous of you for getting that. That is a very scarce one to find. So if anyone has an extra one, please reach out to info@vmgvinyl.com and ask for Andrew Hoffman and let them know.
Our local record store, Mystic Discs in Mystic, Connecticut, have a copy of it for me. So it was great.
That's awesome that he would have that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to talk about a couple of the other things I got in Austin. Nothing special at all, actually. But right across from the table that Drew and I were manning was another table that was just selling on Saturday $10 albums. By halfway through Sunday, $5 albums, and by the end of the day, Sunday, $3 albums. So every time we had a break, we just walk over there and kind of flip through and see if we can find any $10, $5 treasures. And I got a couple pretty good pickups, stuff that I just was looking for, beat up copies of stuff, but I just listened to one of them and actually sounded really good. A band that everybody's probably heard of them, Traffic, mid-60s band. Steve Winwood, who's a name that most music fans know the name Steve Winwood, but probably don't know a lot of his songs. Those type of artists. But he was the the front man for Traffic, which have great sounding records. They're kind of known for the sound on their records. And Heavy Traffic, their greatest hits album, I just listened to it and it actually sounds awesome. My favorite song, Dear Mr. Fantasy, is on it, and it sounds so good. A little bit of surface noise, but for $3, a great pickup. I picked up the best of the Guess Who. Guess Who was one of my mom's favorite bands. She loved the Who and the Guess Who, and one of the best Canadian bands, I'd say, up there with Rush and Neil Young as some Canadian rockers. So that one for $3. And then the other two, I just picked up a Woodstock, first pressing of the Woodstock album for a few bucks, and an Allman Brothers compilation, The Road Goes On Forever, which is one of their greatest, like a double album greatest hits, which has pretty much every Allman Brothers song I know on it. So for $25, some pretty good pickups.
One thing about that guy's collection is that, like, I noticed that a lot of the sleeves were kind of like roached and like heavily flipped through, but the records were in really good shape. Like, they were very clean and not a lot of scratches. And anything that did have scratches, he would just throw it in a dollar bin. And yes, he had $2 bins. I think he was probably the only vendor there that had a dollar bin. Nobody has dollar bins anymore. That is a thing of the past. The $3 bin is now the dollar bin. And he actually had a legit dollar bin, and he had some decent stuff in there too.
Yeah, he had a lot of good stuff. I think he was pretty much picked by vendors who just picked it for $5 and then put it in their table for 15.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Yeah. So it was a good table. And down from us was a really cool vendor. Their name was Lysergic Sound. I think that was their name. Lysergic something, and they had a bunch of really rare records. That's where I got that Jackson's album, so that way Chad could be very jealous of it. And Chad just does not like. I don't know if you like the Jacksons or not. Actually,
completely impartial.
It's just outside of my buying genre, but I just like the condition of it, and the provenance that came with it. But he had like two sections. He had one section with like really cool, rare psych stuff, and I was just flipping through that. And the prices were actually pretty good. And then I noticed that he had some new stuff there, and I was talking with him, a really cool guy. And he's like, this is our label. So we actually produce some things on our label. What they do is they source master tapes for things that have never been released or haven't been released in a very long time, that are just super obscure or hard, that people, talk about. And there's this one that caught my eye called The Constant Sound. And, it had a big old hype sticker on it talking about what it was. And, basically, I can just read it real quick. It says, The Constant Sound, 1968, called one of the holy grails of 60s sunshine pop and light psych, by Patrick Lundborg, author of the Acid Archives. Known existing copies of this very rare and very obscure 1968 demo-only release can be counted on one hand, and the only documented sale of one of these demos went for more than $2,100 in 2015. Which for 2015, that's a lot of money for a record. It says this Hollywood, California record had been a mystery disc to vinyl collectors and archivists for more than 50 years until late 2019, when Lysergic Sound Distributors was contacted by the agent of the copyright holders and owners of the master reels in order to do a legitimate release of this very rare album. Research proved that Lundborg has surmised the album is an unreleased gem by the famed Wrecking Crew, the legendary group of Los Angeles studio musicians from the 1960s. There's 12 well-written, well-arranged, and well-performed songs here by some of the best musicians in the world at the time. A mystery no more. So it has bullet points, limited vinyl pressing, multi-page booklet with detailed information, a glossy print of the proposed 1968 commercial album cover. So I thought it was so cool because it was very unappealing looking and just very plain front cover. Mm-hmm.
Just a white cover with the title, basically.
Yeah,
it is cool because the Wrecking Crew, really well known group of session musicians.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, California. They worked with the Beach Boys predominantly, Sonny and Cher, lots of other big artists, Frank Sinatra. I wonder if those songs on there were intended for somebody, for an artist.
I don't know. And I have to admit, I've not had a chance to sit down and listen to it yet. He did say it's not heavy, like it's not the heavy psych that we're, used to with some of the other stuff, but he said it's light. But it's a feel good record. And so I'm happy about people like this doing things like this. I know that some other small labels are trying to do the same thing. I know Noble Records is doing it with his label, getting like super rare stuff that's almost unobtainium nowadays, and then re-releasing it so that people can have it. And it's not even like the masses are going to have it. I don't know how many of these were limited to, but it's his label and he only had like 5 of them in the booth. So I don't know how many of them were made, but I'm excited to have it and be able to listen to it, because otherwise I probably would have never heard it except for like a really sloppy streamed recording somewhere on
Drew, you first mentioned the Wrecking Crew. I was where my head went was the World Class Wrecking Crew. the band, which I could not, full disclosure, never listened to one single. I've listened to like snippets of songs, and it's not exactly for me, but I'm fascinated by that group because it's Dr. Dre before he was into, before the Dr. Dre that we know. I know I mentioned him before that on other podcasts. That's what I thought you were talking about. I was like, oh, nice. You got an early Dr. Dre pressing.
Dr. Dre and DJ Clientele on the those recordings are actually pretty cool. But what I like about those early releases are the artwork. The artwork on those with the white background and like the single color, like cartoony front covers are just so cool. I like them for the artwork. But Very cool. This is the Wrecking Crew. From the 60s. They were session musicians. I don't know what studios like in total used them, but I know that Capitol used them either exclusively or very heavily. And
I think they were behind like hundreds of top 40 hits.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much if you've heard, the Beach Boys, you've heard Wrecking Crew.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of others, but if they ever needed tighter drums, if they ever needed, extra guitar work or keyboard work, they would call in these session musicians. And this just happens to be a release that they all did together. And I believe that they wrote the music together as well. So that's what makes it very special. And they're just so tight. And the bass work and the guitar work is just phenomenal that they put together in some of their other releases. So I'm looking forward to getting this on the turntable and giving it a listen.
Cool.
So, those were the highlights from the Austin Record Show. We got some good barbecue while we were there. We went to Frank. What was that?
Terry Black's.
Terry Black. Yeah,
right across the street. For listeners, the next one is in October. They do it twice a year there. Yep. The dates are, I think, it's the 19th and 20th. So we'll be there in October, and if you can, try to get out there. It's an experience. If you're a record collector, definitely try to get out to the Austin show.
Yeah, Rob from the Wax, I was watching one of his videos. He said that, and this is a huge record collector, by the way. He said that by the end of it, he was sick of vinyl. That was an exact quote from Rob at the Wax. He's like, I was sick of vinyl so much. You just have to just plan on not being able to see everything. It's impossible to flip through every bin there. You just have to kind of walk around, see the hot spots that interest you in particular, and just go and check it out. So, and definitely go across the street and check out Terry Black's for lunch. It was really good.
Yeah.
What you guys went through some of your your pickups, what were some of did you get either one of you guys see anything that, you never seen before, or is like a really hard to find rare record that, you were wild by?
We just didn't have time to search like that. I like just stuff hanging up. I didn't notice, nothing jumped out at me. Collectors have, the vendors there have rare stuff. That's why they're there. But it just, I wasn't searching for rare records, and I didn't see anything that really jumped out at me. Did you, Drew? Not saying that it wasn't there, but it just wasn't on my radar.
Yeah, from walking to the restroom and the front door, I really didn't see a whole lot. But I did notice there was one vendor that had it was a really cool booth. I've never seen him there before. If he was, I apologize. But he had all modern stuff that's super, super rare. Like he had the Lana Del Rey exposed front cover that I have actually been looking for. I need to get that one. But he just had shelves upon shelves with like really nice LED lighting, and it was all like 2015 or newer.
Mm-hmm.
But like super like rare versions, like the Urban Outfitters version or the signed version that the artist released on their website on pre-order only, or whatever the case may be. Some of his items were over $1,000.
Yeah.
It was interesting. He's like, I really want to send some of my stuff to be slabbed, but I'm nervous about shipping. So what can we tell people who are nervous about shipping items in the mail that are expensive?
To use our shipping container.
Yeah.
I mean, you give you credit here. When you were AAGS, the shipping carton that you designed is, I don't want to say bulletproof, but it was actually engineered to transport valuable or transport records so safely. I've seen there are heavy duty, boxes within boxes. Oh, you can explain it better than me, but it's if you're worried about shipping, that is something that was designed specifically to ship records through the mail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're available on our website.
If you're local to the Rhode Island and area or Maryland area, we've worked with customers on drop off and pick up if they're regional.
And we have something in the works. We're not ready to announce it yet, but it's going to make getting your expensive vinyl to us a lot easier and more convenient. We'll get that announcement out here before long. It's we're not far away from it.
All right.
Cool.
Just this was kind of a mini episode that ended up going a little longer than we thought.
Yeah.
But for next week, we're going to come back with a band, like back to our regular format.
Yeah.
Or kind of like a band. Drew, you want to announce kind of what we're planning for next week?
Yeah, I was taken aback by the news that Steve Albini passed away. Rest in peace, Steve. He integral part of producing and engineering albums like Nirvana's In Utero, and he worked with the Pixies, and he had his own music with Shellac. They were getting ready to, I think their new album drops next week, and they were getting ready to go on tour for that, and which that's not going to happen now, which is a huge bummer, but definitely going to pick up the new album. Then he was also, I think he debuted in The Big Black. And so what we're going to do is to honor Steve. We were scheduled to have an interview with him on the podcast. And that's not going to happen now. So we're going to honor him in the way of discussing Steve Albini, his releases, and his work and contributions to a lot of music that we hold near and dear to our hearts. So that will be our topic in our next episode.
All right.
Very good, gentlemen. It was a nice talk. If you want to learn more about vintage media grading, go to vmgvinyl.com. You can learn and submit your records there. And if you have questions, contact us at info@vmgvinyl.com. In the meantime, thanks for listening to the podcast, and we will see you next time.